Hi everyone, it's me Baburam Basnet from Nepal Open University, the student of MPhil second semester, presenting a short video based on critical analysis of the seminal essay The Politics of Translation by Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak. First of all, I would like to start from writer's short introduction. Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak was born on 24 February in 1942. She is an Indian American scholar and one of the most brilliant feminist critics and post colonial literary theorists in contemporary literary criticism in the West world. She was born in Kolkata of India and immigrated to America in 1963. Now she is a professor at Columbia University, USA. She is a founding member of the Institute for Comparative Literature and Society at Columbia University. She calls herself practical Marxist feminist deconstructionist. She is one of the most important, the most influential, and the most controversial figures in the post-colonial criticism in the United States after Edward Said has been dead. She is being paid increasing attention to in academic field. She is very deconstructive in nature. Harvard University Press has highly praised her as one of the foremost thinkers in post-colonial theory in terms of her great achievement. She has been married twice, first in 1964 to Talbot Spivak, a fellow student at the University of Calcutta, whom she later divorced in 1977. She later married Basudev Chatterjee, a professor of history at the University of Delhi, whom she has now been divorced from for 10 years. She has no children. This seminal essay, The Politics of Translation, written in 1993, brings together feminist, post-colonialist, and post-structuralist approaches. In this essay, she is looking at the personal experience of having translated two important works. One is Derrida's Of Dramatology from French to English, and the next one is Mahasweta Devi's works from an Indian language to Bengal into English. Here, her famous proposition is discussed, which is of great historical importance in translation studies. This is very important for us to keep in mind that translation here is not seen as a political event. Translation for her is an act of understanding the other as well as the self. For her, it has a political dimension, as it is a strategy that can be consciously employed. She uses the feminine adjectives like submission, intimacy, and understanding for theorizing translation. She stresses that her concern as a translator has always been to maintain the tone of the subaltern discourse, that is, cultural subalternity. She considers translation as an important approach in pursuing the larger feminist agenda of achieving women's solidarity. The task of the feminist translator is to consider language as a sign of the working of gendered agency. She opines that translation can give access to a large number of feminists working in various languages and cultures. She adds that a translator must surrender to the text, as translation is the most intimate act of reading. It is an act of submitting to the rhetorical dimension of the text. This, for her, is more of an erotic act than ethical. She also says that one's first responsibility in understanding solidarity is to learn other women's mother tongue rather than considering solidarity agenda priori given. She also shows a kind of anxiety for the third world illiterate woman, and the first task of the feminist is to learn their language rather than impose someone's notion of solidarity and feminism on them. There are countless languages in which women all over the world have grown up, learning, and have been female or feminist. And still, the languages we keep learning, the most are the powerful European ones. Based on the ideas proposed by post structuralists like Derrida, she wants to deconstruct the preconceived thought processes that she sums up in terms of three-tiered notion of language, that is, rhetoric, logic, and silence. She proposes a different kind of effort for translation in terms of synonym, syntax, and local color. Everywhere she speaks out against Western feminists who expect feminist writing from outside Europe to be translated into the language of power, that is English. Such translation, in her view, is often expressed in translationage, which eliminates the identity of politically less powerful individuals and culture. She suggests that feminists from the hegemonic countries should show real solidarity with women in post colonial contexts by learning the language in which those women speak and write. According to her, there is no single linear way in which one text can be translated into the other. There are other underlying politics of weight, such as ethnicity, caste, and gender. All of these come into play when this is translated from a certain language to the other. It demands something more deep, intimate, and personal that some of the terms that she used is a surrender, an erotic relation, a love relation between the translator and the text, and she further argues that the translated text begins to resemble the original, or the translated text begins to gain an identity of its own only when this relation exists in terms of identity or in terms of selfhood between the translator and the translated work. But right from the beginning of the essay, she has given due emphasis on the aspect of identity. She further finds that when language changes, there are multiple things which undergo change along with that. It becomes a different text and it is being received by a different set of audience. We have a different cultural ethos and ethnic tradition. So it is not the same text which gets translated. It is a different text which gets received and circulated. In this regard, she has given a very real pertinent example of translating Mahasweta Devi's short stories, Stana Deni. There is a very abstract thing which happens at the level of gender, at the level of surrender, surrendering the self of the translator and allowing the self of the translator to surrender to the text. That is something that she seems to highlight throughout this work. So, as a translator, as a feminist post-colonial translator, she is fully aware of the challenges that she is facing while translating, and she also, therefore, understands why one tends to play safe by starting with logic over rhetorical inferences. But she explains that in doing so, one loses vital clues here in the source text. To decipher these metaphors which get lost in between source to translated text, she calls for development of love and affinity to the text by the translators. Thus, the task of the translator is to facilitate this love between the original and its shadow. In addition, a certain Eurocentric kind of feminism is also being sold to the other developing third world countries. The examples from Toni Morrison's Beloved, that is the scene of violence between mother and daughter, she wants to draw our attention towards the impossibility of translation. Through phrase examples, she has highlighted the tensions between different approaches and calls for surrender of self by the translator to the text. Uh, Here is the end of this presentation. Thank you so much for watching it. Thank you.